Welcome into the UCR Basketball Show presented by Fire and Vine. My name's Jacob Vincent. That's Noah McKay. A little bit early this week. We've got some big games coming up tomorrow night and Friday night as well. We're going to talk about all that and so much more on this week's edition of the UCR Basketball Show presented by Fire and Vine. There's a pretty big football game coming up in just under an hour, so we'll make sure we get out of here before that gets started so everybody can tune into that as well. But good night and I guess good evening, everyone.
Good evening. What a great day. This is a great day. I'm having a
cold outside.
It's very cold. I'm having a good day, Jacob. I don't know about you.
I'm glad you are.
It's so many good things have happened today. And I really hope that I know schools are getting out tomorrow, and I really hope a lot of our games don't get moved. I know some of the back roads are a little bit ugly. The main roads are fine. But man, this is as fun of a Tuesday slate as we're going to have up here probably all year. And so I really hope we don't. And it's just fun when you have a bunch of big games on one night and the potential for them to not all be on one night. I think we're going to have a lot of games tomorrow, but a couple may get moved. But regardless, yeah, we usually do this on Wednesday, but let's do it on Monday. Let's really get into these matchups. There's a few critical ones, especially on the girls' side, that we can really get into. And I'm sure we'll get into some rants and have some fun as well. So I'm excited to get into it.
There we go. So that's the setup of today. Of course, we'll get into the UC Top 5 on the girls and the boys side. It didn't change, so we'll just let you know about that. It stayed exactly the same as it did last Wednesday, but we'll go through them and let you know what teams are still there. And then we're going to do pretty much just previews of all the games that we have coming up. There's a lot of really good girls games coming up tomorrow night that we hope are all played. And then same on the boys side, and then we'll let you know about the games that we're looking forward to on Friday as well. And there's an interesting one on Saturday. Before we get going, of course, we want to let you know about all of our all-inclusive sponsors for making everything that we do here at UCR possible. Of course, Club Wyndham, Sonia Brown with American Way Real Estate, The Real Estate Collective, Livingston Regional Hospital, Hall Sports and Outdoors, Tee Up in Baxter, Fire and Vine. As you're watching it, this is presented by Fire and Vine, this show. Aminette's Eagle Auction and Realty, Nelson Trophy and Screen Printing, the Watson Chevy UCR Media Network, The Quality Family, Domino's, the Crouch Team with Highlands Elite Real Estate, and Swallows Insurance. Appreciate all of those sponsors for making everything we do here at UCR possible. And again, this is the UCR Basketball Show presented by Fire and Vine. Whether you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, please like the stream. Comment along with us. Let us know where you're watching from. And if you're on Facebook, make sure you hit that share button as well. Helps us out more than you guys know. All right, let's get into it. Let's get into the UC Girls Top 5. And I mentioned unchanged because none of these teams lost. They're all pretty good basketball teams, and they're all still winning. We'll just go 1 through 5. Upperman remains at number 1, now 19-3, 6 wins in a row. Cookville at number 2, they're 13-3, 7 wins in a row. White County at number 3, 6 wins in a row. Picket County at number 4, 3 wins in a row. And York Institute still at number 5. 3 wins in a row now for the Dragonettes.
Yeah, and you mentioned it stays the same. We went into it really in depth on Wednesday. I would just say this is really the first time in a while that there'll be some opportunity for some significant shakeups on the list this week, depending on what happens on Tuesday and on Friday. Two of the top 3 face each other tomorrow. We're really going to get into that game, Upperman and Sparta, and then Cookville, really their only losable district game at Lebanon on Friday night. So the opportunity for a lot of movement there. If Sparta wins, obviously be a signature win for the Warriorettes. If Upperman wins, then they're not going to drop off at the number 1 line. And if Cookville goes in and beats Lebanon, that's kind of the interesting one, because with the addition of Callie Reeder, we saw her have a big impact on Friday, certainly raises the ceiling for this Cookville team. And so we kind of had those discussions of not looking to change the list this week, but hey, how does that in action? And that's just her first game, so they'll work her in more, and we'll see, how often she's playing, what those rotations look like. But it's very rare where we have a big bomb thrown into a top team this late in the season, especially an addition. Sometimes you have an injury, God forbid, but an addition in, and so we're taking a close look at that. But really, the first opportunity in a while for these top 3 to have some movement comes this week.
Yeah, and Picket County can be thrown into that as well. They get
Yep.
Clark Range, another big game that we'll be talking about tomorrow night. And then York Institute, they've had a great start to district play so far, and a good opportunity for them as well coming up this week. So those are the top five on the girls' side. Once again, Upperman 1, Cookville 2, White County 3. I beg your pardon, Upperman and White County play each other tomorrow night, so that very well could change. Pickett County at 4, and York Institute at 5. Cookville plays Lebanon on Friday. They host that game, but still a big matchup
Apologies.
for them.
My bad. Good.
And
Our connection's terrible at Lebanon, so that's good. We just dodged
yeah,
that.
it's huge. So that's what we got on the top five. Let's talk about the boys' side for the UC top five. Again, unchanged from a week ago. That does mean Upperman is at number one at 16-2, 6 wins in a row. Jackson County still at number two, 13-2. They beat Macon County and Monterey in their last couple of games. Stone Memorial, they also had another one in there that I forgot to throw in. Stone Memorial is 14-5, fell to Upperman, and then beat Sparta and Livingston in their last two. Pickett County 13-5, and Cookville at 9-8.
Very interesting. Upperman taking care of business, had that weird one against Livingston, then blew out DeKalb County, which, DeKalb County's record on the boys' side isn't great, but they've been competitive, so a decent win there. Quick note, don't make Ty Cobb mad. Just, it's a terrible 9-point game or 10-point game. He gets really upset, probably a little bit justified in my eyes, and then 45 seconds later, they're up 20 into halftime. Bad idea. That's why they're number one, because that's a planet very few people can get to. Cade and Ty are the only two in our area that can hit that level of sheer dominance. Very interesting game on Saturday that we're going to talk about between Stone and Pickett County. And Pickett County, first team this year with an opportunity to crack into the top three. That's not Upperman, Jackson County, or Stone. Stone may go in and handle business. Stone stays in that top three. But if Pickett wins, you're going to have a new member of the top three for the first time, I would say, all season long.
Of course, they met earlier this year, and Stone Memorial won that game very handily. But Pickett County been playing a little bit better basketball as of late, and so we'll see how that goes coming up on Saturday. Another game that we'll get into in a little bit. Jackson County has a big matchup with Smith County. Another game that we'll preview coming up here in a little bit. And Cookville, a couple of big opportunities. Really, every single district game that they have is a big opportunity just because this district is so evenly matched this year. And we've seen it in their first couple of district games. Been some really, really fun games for the Cavaliers. Fortunately for them, they've come out on the winning side of those games.
And while we do this top five, the Tennessee Sports Writers Association statewide poll just dropped. Literally less than an hour ago. I'm just now seeing it. So
we can go through that.
I'll go through it quickly here. Remains in Class 1A on the girls' side. Pickett County remains at number one. Clark Range somehow gets to number 5. It's because they beat Coalfield. Coalfield sitting right behind them at number 6. There was a lot of losses this week between a lot of top 10 teams really around the state. Class 2A, York Institute, they bounced up to number 3 in the state. York without Reese Beatty. Up to number 3 in the state. Smith County, by nature of their loss to Watertown, does drop out of the top 10 this week. Upperman remains the number 1 ranked team in Class 3A, with White County sniffing right behind at number 3. Heritage at number 2. Heritage is 18-1. White County at 19-2. They are number 3. So we have a battle between number 1 ranked and number 3 ranked in our poll. And in the statewide poll, Dyersburg got drubbed, got beat last week by Crockett County. So they dropped to number 5, the defending champs. Still very, very good, but they did drop a good bit. Jackson Southside, number 4 in Class 3A. And in Class 4A, Bradley Central lost to Mount Vernon Academy, which is the best team in the country.
National powerhouse,
Yeah, and they only lost by 21 to a private school that may be the best team in the country. They're still number 1. Cookville, though, is up to number 4 in the state in Class 4A on the girls' side. So those are girls' teams ranked. The boys' teams, Pickett County up to number 3 in Class 1A. Clay County up to number 8. And again, chaos on that bottom side of the boys in Class 1A, a ton of losses. So Pickett beating Clay was a better win for Pickett than a bad loss for Clay. Both Pickett County and Clay County ranked. Class 2A, this is the first one I have a real bones with. Jackson County falls to tied for 6th with Fairleigh. Tyner Academy beat Chat Prep last week. They jumped to number 5. Tellico Plains is 16-1. They were 1 spot behind Jackson County, so those two jumped Jackson. I get it, and honestly, I say that, and I kind of take it back. Jackson County just hadn't played a great schedule. It's really tough to compare them to these statewide teams when you haven't played really anybody on this level, the caliber of these teams are playing. Class 3A Upperman, unanimous number 1 in Class 3A on the boys' side. Stone Memorial at number 5 on the boys' side. And that will do it for our teams that are ranked statewide in the latest Tennessee Sports Writers Association poll.
Tell you what, Cookville at number 4.
Yeah.
It's a good ranking.
It
in the
is.
4A classification. And obviously,
it's a shame that Bradley Central is what it is.
It is.
Because if Bradley Central wasn't in this class, we'd be having a very it stinks because with every other class, maybe besides Class 1A and the boys, and even then, Chattanooga Prep did just lose. We're saying, hey, these teams can win a state championship. Bradley Central makes it so tough to say that, kind of like Alcoa does in Class 3A in football. But it doesn't take anything away from how well Cookville's playing.
Absolutely.
And you're right. Top 4 in the state, and it's a well-earned ranking right now for them. They're the only team, by the way, that's beaten McMinn Central. So for the talk about good wins, bad losses, etc., really good win for Cookville as the weeks go by. That win over McMinn Central, albeit very early in the season.
That did come in game number 2 right after the beat Stone Memorial. But yeah, they've got some really good wins on the year, and obviously we'll get into their matchup with Lebanon coming up in a little bit as well, because tomorrow they're going to win by a lot.
Yeah.
So. Let's switch gears and let's talk about, well, before that, the UC boys top 5. Upperman 1, Jackson County 2, Stone 3, Picket County 4, and Cookville at number 5. Now let's talk about,
keep an eye on Livingston Academy hanging around that 5 spot. They lost 2 games last week, but each by a possession to Upperman and Stone Memorial. The overall record isn't great, but nobody's is and below this 4 spot in our area. Keep an eye on Livingston Academy to threaten to crack into this top 5.
Stone Memorial had to hit a shot late to go ahead in that ball game against Livingston Academy as well. So it could have been a different outcome if that shot does not go. Let's talk about some girls games coming up tomorrow night, because there are some big ones. I'll let you know the games, and then we're going to go into a deep dive of all these games. White County is at Upperman. Clark Range at Picket County. Both those games are broadcast games. Smith County at Jackson County, and Cumberland County at Stone Memorial. We'll start with White County at Upperman, number 1 versus number 3. And it's going to be a doozy. White County 19-2, Upperman 19-3. And you've obviously done the games in Baxter these last couple of weeks. The atmospheres there have been incredible, and it ain't changing coming up tomorrow night.
Yeah, it's absolutely not. I want to get into this game, but I want to get into something else, and I'd maybe surprise some people. Something that we've known about for a long time, or at least been hearing about for a long time, and I've really been quiet about it, but it's ticking me off. Because I think there's an athlete in our area that's gotten screwed. And it's as weeks go by, and then, of course, we had the big transfer last week, and as far as everything we know, nothing untoward about it. Callie Reeder moved, eligible to play. Everything's checked off. Everybody did it the way they're supposed to. She plays. From everything I gathered, Keely Mullins did everything right. Right? She's no longer on Livingston at the end of last season for whatever reason. Transfers to Sparta in the summer. Enrolls in White County High School. Practices with the team. Is approved her transfer by the TSSAA. And for some reason, Keely Mullins hasn't been able to play basketball. And I don't know the entire story, but I know enough to feel really strongly that there is one person, there's 2 groups of people that are being hurt badly by this. And the first and most importantly is Keely Mullins, who's had her senior season taken away because people have made a decision to not let her play. And this is people that I think are outside of the basketball program in Sparta. That's unfair to her. And it's really unfair to White County, who should have a massive weapon on their team and has not been allowed to have that weapon. So if somebody wants to prove me wrong and give me a real good reason to why Keely Mullins has not been allowed to play in Sparta this season, I'd love to hear it. I'll walk back what I say, publicly apologize. But if not, to the grown adults who are not letting this girl play her senior season, grow up. Should be ashamed of yourself. And recognize that this is bigger than you. I don't care who it is. She's approved by the TSSAA. She should be playing. And this game should have even more storylines to it, because we should be able to talk about what kind of matchup problems Keely Mullins presents for Upperman. And we're not having that discussion. So I've kept my mouth shut about it for a long time, but I'm really sick and freaking tired of it. And I've been hoping that cooler heads would prevail and she'd be on the floor by this point, or we'd have some sort of resolution, and we still don't have a resolution. So my hope is maybe me saying something fire somebody up that she can play, because she deserves to play, and that team deserves to have her on the team. I'm off my soapbox now. I'm sick of it. She's 17, 18-year-old girl has gotten screwed by adults out of playing her senior season. And who knows who she would have impressed in her senior season. She's going to go play at the next level. Maybe she should have had more options. I assume you agree with me, Jacob. You don't have to go crazy. You're not going to get in trouble for me, obviously. I just think it's ridiculous. I really do. I think it's ridiculous.
I completely agree. I mean, you're not going to get an opportunity to play at one place. You go somewhere else where you believe you're going to get an opportunity to play, and I think she should absolutely have that opportunity to play. So taking that away from her is unfair. It's unjust, and hopefully, like you said, cooler heads will prevail, and maybe you saying something will get it rolling down the hill, hopefully.
Hopefully, because listen, there's 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks left to go in the regular season, and then it's playoff time. And this is a team that can win a state championship.
Mm-hmm.
And so it greatly hurts Keely Mullins, and it hurts the rest of their. And listen, maybe they won't, right? Maybe they lose in the sub-state round and they don't win. Okay, that happened. Maybe they do that. Maybe even if she plays, that happens. But there's no good reason that I've heard for her to not be a part of this basketball team.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's politics, if it's whatever it is, people have forgotten that these are high school athletes.
Yeah.
That deserve a right to play a sport. And I think the young lady's gotten screwed. And I'm really incredibly annoyed about it. And I'm going to be honest, I'm not going to let it go. Unless I hear something really good, contrary to anything else that anybody has said to me about it, I'm not going to let it go on behalf of Keely Mullins. I'm not. And I think and none of us are. And when we don't let stuff go, it can become very annoying. And I'm on that track now. So, all right, let's talk about the game. Huge game tomorrow night.
Yeah, let's talk about it. I mentioned 19-2 White County, Upperman 19-3. The atmosphere is going to be tremendous. 3 times they met last season. Sparta won both regular season matchups, 58-32 in that first one, 35-30 in the second game. But then Upperman got the important one in the region title game, winning 52-45, and didn't have to go on the road to Heritage, which is where Sparta had to go, and lost on that last-second buzzer beater. Since becoming district foes, you look back at the series last 3 years, Sparta has won that first game every season, 45-41, 61-38, and 58-32. They've had the Lady Bees number in this first game the last 3 seasons.
It's super interesting, this matchup. We'll get into a lot of different levels. I went back and watched, as I typically do. Listen, in the playoffs, for us, this becomes a freaking marathon.
Mm-hmm.
And with few exceptions, I remember, hey, this team eliminated this team. I don't remember how games went for the most part. I remembered vaguely that Upperman got a huge lead in that game and that the officials were bad. Those are the 2 things I remember. It's like, let me go back and watch that game. And the first thing that stuck out to me was, man, the officials were really bad in that game. But they were really bad both ways. And I kept saying, so Celeste Reed played like 5 minutes because she fouled out. But both teams had girls fouling out, had 3-4 fouls, 4 fouls. So I think it was just that association is totally different. It was really rough to watch. We didn't see those teams at their best in that game last year, but I don't think it was one-sided one way or the other. I think both teams had to play within those constraints that were put on them. The second thing that struck me is I had forgotten how close Sparta cut that game. The 17-point Upperman lead in the second quarter. Sparta cut it to 2 in the third. And then Upperman answered and was able to re-stretch the advantage to like 9 points and kind of maintain that through the game. So it was a super interesting game to go back and see. You make a great point, Jacob. The first game in this series has been dominated by Sparta. Last 2 years haven't been close.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second meeting's been closer. And then in the postseason, really, Upperman's had White County's number. And so I think there could be lots of different reasons for that. But it does show you that either way, right? If Sparta comes out and wins by 20, if Upperman comes out and wins by 20, that is not the end of it's not the end of the chapter, because I think these 2 teams have I'd be really surprised. I think we have a reasonable expectation that these two teams are going to meet in the district tournament championship game and the region tournament championship game. And that it's possible if they get the right draw, they could meet for it all at the end. That's not out of the realm of possibility. Now, Dyersburg's going to have to say something about that. Jackson Southside Heritage, we get that. But it's possible that these two teams see that. So this is going to be chapter 1 of the rivalry. And what do these two very good coaches do with that in mind? You know Upperman's going to play the 2-3. You know Sparta's going to try and trap you in the half court with their speed and length. Those things aren't going to surprise you. But do you see anything out of the bag in this game? I tend to think not, which seems to be really this game may be the game that's decided purely by the athletes on the floor. And for the past couple of years, that has really been an advantage Sparta. Nia Powers, Celeste Reed, Ava Jones, then Celeste Reed, Ava Jones, now Ava Jones, and a bunch of guards. A little bit different than in years past. Whereas Upperman, we know they've got a host of guards. It's the matchup this year is different than in years past. Last year's games, Celeste Reed was a huge part, except for that region championship game. Bella Mullins was a huge part for Upperman in that region championship game. They don't have her anymore. So to me, there's a few X factors, Jacob. Maggie Butler's the single biggest X factor in the game.
Yep.
Can she find a way to limit the dominance of Ava Jones? Because on paper, Ava Jones is the big mismatch. I look at Bella Winningham. She's really playing well this year. Can she didn't play her best game in that region championship game, but man, when she's hitting shots, it's unbelievable. And then on the other side, Sadie South. Can Sadie South play the way she has throughout the early portion of this season? Because she wasn't really a huge factor in that region championship game and in those meetings last year. I sincerely doubt Michael Dodgen's going to leave Sadie South all alone outside. We've seen a lot of open threes by Sadie South. It's a super intriguing matchup, and I think this year they may be the most evenly matched up player for player that we've seen in recent years. I think we're in for an absolute dogfight. 1 versus 3 on our top 5 means you're about to see just an unbelievable type of basketball game from what we expect. And I suspect nothing else. I'd also be remiss, on a sad note, our condolences to the McWilliams family. Coach Dana's father passed away yesterday. That's number one, it's awful. Number 2, that throws a wrench into things. And how does this game start with all those things in mind? That changes from a pure basketball perspective, your practice schedule. It changes, obviously, who's at your practice. If no McWilliams are at Upperman's practice, Coach Hughes is there. She's good. She's the middle school coach, but there's not right. So all those different things are moving parts in this game, which will not be the most important meeting between the two, but it is so far, which is why we're so excited about it.
I got into the numbers. I like getting into the numbers of these games. Yes. And I looked up Upperman's scoring this year. It's so much better than it has been in years past. They're scoring 57 points per game on offense, and defensively, they're just as good as they have been. They're only allowing 36 points per game, an average margin of victory of 21.2 points. For White County, you would imagine them to be a little bit better offensively. They are at 65 points per game, but defensively, they're not bad. 43 points per game. 22 points, an average margin of victory. So they're winning games in a very similar style. They're scoring a lot more points than the other team. It's just a little bit more for White County. They've got a similar record. And so you're coming in, and then you mentioned you start to look at the players in this game. I think Maggie Butler is a massive difference, especially for Upperman coming into this contest. And against Ava Jones, we'll see how that matchup plays out. I'm interested to see who Gracie Clark's matchup is defensively, whether it's on Gracie Butler or Taylor Dolente or even Sadie South, because she's a very good defender. Who of those 3 do you want to try to slow down on the guards? And that's not to say Lakeland Grasty and Bella Winningham are not good defenders at all. Gracie Clark was one of the top defenders in the area last year and coming into this year as well.
And real quick, Coach Dodgen put Kyra Fox on Sydney Wilhite on Friday night.
Yeah.
And so he's not always going to put we think of Clark as being their lockdown defender, but he puts Kyra Fox there, and maybe a Kyra Fox can be more aggressive defensively. And what do they do? And then the other real quick note, if they play man-to-man being Sparta, does Ava Jones stretch out of the paint to go guard Maggie Butler, who can shoot the 3? That's a different element, or is it a different matchup when Maggie Butler's in the game. When Ella Harrell's in the game, they're going to be down low. But when it's Maggie Butler, are they stretching out? And does that open some lanes for Gracie Butler? That's the chess match that is really interesting within this basketball game. That last year, Upperman didn't have that element offensively of a big who could step out and shoot the three.
And I think Ava Jones is fine with doing that. That's what she
Yeah.
did when she was a freshman and a sophomore as well. Has really transitioned to more of a post player these last couple of years, and especially this year, being the tallest player on the floor for White County. So it's, I think you said it. I think everyone knows what everyone else wants to do. White County's got the history in this first game these last 3 years. I mean, it's going to come down to the players on the floor, and hopefully for your sake, the officials don't have a factor in it.
Well, and I was thinking, man, I'm glad this is going to be in our area, and the region tournaments in our area this year, because I know we get into it, and there's a couple. I mean, listen, that game last week against Livingston was the first real one where I was just unglued in about a year, which is great. That's a pretty good rate for how many games that we do. So that's interesting. The environment. I think both teams are motivated. Listen, we've given White County the motivation because apparently we've hated on White County. I love to see that clip where I've hated on White County, but whatever. That's fine. Listen, we talk about it all the time. Put us on the whiteboard, our picks, our whatever rankings. That's great.
That's what we're here for.
Love it. But Upperman's sick of hearing about us saying, hey, they keep getting destroyed by Sparta the first time they play. And so I think, and there's going to be, I think, some emotion out of the Upperman players to play for their coach in this game. So I don't think there's any lack of motivation. The crowd's going to be unbelievable. This is why girls basketball here is better than any place else in the country. This environment tomorrow night in Baxter is going to be the best girls basketball environment in the nation, bar none. And it'll be right in our backyard. I mean, it's going to be unbelievable. And the only place where it may be challenged is an hour and a half up the road in Birdstown for the game we're about to talk about. That's why our girls basketball is so much better than everybody else. But so many stars and then players we haven't even mentioned. I briefly mentioned Kyra Fox. She could play a big role in this game. Lakeland Grasty coming off one of her biggest scoring outputs of the season against Cumberland County. Ava Mae Allen playing really well. Can she give Upperman a few points? Can Ella Harrell give them 8 points when it's Ava Jones in the low block instead of somebody else? All of those things are going to go towards deciding who wins this game. And it's a big one for Upperman. They're trying to defend their home floor. The winner goes all alone in the first place in the district for now. And if Sparta goes in and wins, they've stolen one on the road, and they're thinking all we have to do is hold serve, take care of business in our home gym, and we have the catbird seat. That being said, being in the top 2, you're fine. Being in the top 3, you're fine. You don't want to be in the 4-5 matchup. The top 3, these two teams feel pretty safe now at 2-0. They're going to be in the top 3. The 3 seed's going to win. We understand that now in the first round of the district tournament and be into the region. But this puts you in the catbird seat to win the region or win the district if you win this game tomorrow night.
White County 19-2 at Upperman 19-3. The Lady Bees 8-0 at home so far this season in Baxter. This game will be broadcast to be on our UCR YouTube channels. Make sure you tune in for that tomorrow night. Clark Range 15-5 at Picket County 15-3. You mentioned the atmosphere in Baxter. The atmosphere in Birdstown is going to be top notch as well. It's a little bit smaller of a gym, so it seems like it's a little more packed in there for these 1A games. Last season, Pickett's won all 3 of them, 70-57, 72-55, 72-47, and really, you got to go all the way back to 2021 for the last time that Clark Range beat Picket County on the girls' side on February 6th, 77-60 at Clark Range. Since then, Picket County has won 9 times in a row in this series, and for Clark Range, they just took a loss to Clay County the other night, 46-42, which is, I don't want to use the word detrimental, but it hurts their chances in 7 single A. They have to win this game. If you don't win this game, Picket County's got an easy path to the 1 seed in the district tournament.
Absolutely. Listen, if Picket wins, they're winning this district because they can drop one that they shouldn't lose. And this is a team that's shown they're not going to drop one they shouldn't lose. And that game, listen, when we first saw the Clark Range Clay County game, we all went, whoa, right? And Clark Range had a very interesting week because they opened it up with that win over Coalfield.
Right. And
that was a great win for them. Then you followed up one day later and he dropped to Clay County. You're like, man, maybe you shouldn't play Coalfield the day before you play Clay County.
Which that was also a postponed game.
It was a made-up game. Yeah. So, but Clay County, listen, They're 6-10. They opened their season at Upperman, neutral site with Cleveland. Okay, so there's 2 games that you can't hold against them for a 1A team. They lost at Livingston Academy. Then they lost at home against Livingston Academy. There's 4 games that you don't expect a 1A team generally to win. They lost Meigs County, neutral site game. There's 5. So all of a sudden, you take those away, it's 6-5. And I say that to say we have some other teams that have not played that kind of schedule that would have been sitting there at 11-5.
Mm-hmm.
And then if they beat Clark Range, we go, oh, yeah, well, they're a good basketball team. So I caution everybody to not just write off Clay County as being some 6 games below 500 team that's not any good. Matt Walker's a good coach. And they got good pieces.
Recent history, too. This is a very good Clay County basketball
100%.
team.
So this is the kind of team, like a Stone Memorial last year, that could find themselves in a region semi. That probably will when you consider the other region, the other district in this region. Everyone goes, whoa, how did that happen? Oh, they lost. They must have thrown the game. No, they just played a ridiculous schedule. So keep it in context.
Mm-hmm.
Because I found myself immediately after that game going, oh, well, Pickett's going to throttle Clark Range. That's a dud. Maybe they'll play each other in the state tournament zone. And maybe that was too far. But this is a big bounce back spot for Clark Range. And I expect Lamar Rogers to have his team ready to go in this game. As their Alamo, they got to go win it. And I don't know when the last time a team will have beaten Clark Range 10 times in a row. I don't know if that is. I mean, we'll have to go back and look.
Right.
I don't know if that's happened in like 40 years. That is uncharted territory, which is a credit to Coach Smith and what he's done there and what the team has done in Byrdstown. But I expect this to be the best version of Clark Range, and Pickett County better be ready for that and not be lulled to sleep by the fact of, and I'll draw a football comparison. Macon County and Upperman play a dogfight game. Upperman goes in, throttles Sparta 49-7. Macon County plays them next week, loses. Macon County won a state championship, but I think there was some, if they can beat them, we're going to just walk through. Picket County's going to have to watch themselves and recognize that Clark Range is probably better than their last performance indicates.
Guard play is going to be massive in this game. Obviously, Zoe Nicholas and Emmy Lowe, they're the show now for Pickett County, with Callie Reeder transferring out and going to Cookville. His last 3 games hasn't really mattered.
They're the show.
They blew out Clay County. They've blown out Gordonsville and Red Boiling Springs as well. So they've been cruising along here in 7 single A. This is the best test that they have had since losing Callie Reeder and transferring out. And it'll also test their depth. I mean, they've only got 7 rostered players right now. They've only got a 6-player rotation. And so we're really going to get to see. And Clark Range has some good players themselves. Chloe Phillips, Katie Hopkins, some really talented players. Rogers in there as well. So this is a big-time matchup in Byrdstown, and is going to go a long way in seeing what this Pickett County team can do without Callie Reeder, because we know how big of a loss that is for the Lady Bobcats. And I mean, she was the tournament MVP last year in single A in the tournament. So when they won a state championship, so that is a big loss. And we've seen already how much it has helped Cookville just in the short time that she only played 1 game for them, and she played really well in that game. But then for Pickett County, if you win this game, you're 4-0 in district play with 4 games to play. You essentially have it wrapped up, because you can then lose to Clark Range and still get the 1 seed later on.
Yeah, it's over. They win this one, it's over. And let's just be honest, it's probably over anyway. Clark Range could not lose that game. Now that changes if they go in and win tomorrow, but generally speaking, you got to win this district with Pickett County sitting in it right now. You can't drop one. You can't drop another one. You can split with Pickett and go to a coin flip. But you can't drop one, and they did. So we'll see. But that means they got to give everything they got in this one. And you mentioned it, and we kind of talked about it last week. 6-girl rotation. There is going to be a game this year where that turns into a 7-girl rotation. Mm-hmm. And they've got to be fully prepared for that. And quite frankly, those blowouts probably help them practice some of those different rotations in there. Get all 7 in the game and see how you can make that work, because it's going to happen. Somebody's going to pick up quick fouls. Somebody's going to have a quick whistle, and you're going to get into foul trouble, and you're going to have to play 7 and wish you had 8. And so we'll see how Pickett County is able to manage that. But this is a really good matchup between Nicholas and Lowe and Chloe Phillips, Katie Hopkins. You find me 4 players on 1 floor in single A in the state, that caliber. I would love to see it. I mean, it's going to be as good as it gets. And Casey and JB, I'm sure, are going to have a lot of fun on that one. But I just have a feeling because conventional wisdom is now Pickett's going to roll. I got a feeling this one's really tight. I feel like you, and listen, it'll give us a good barometer because if Pickett does go in there and wins this game by 20, I'm just going to sit here and say, well, they're heads and shoulders better than everybody else in the district. Because I'm really confident we're going to see the best version of Clark Range in this basketball game tomorrow night.
This game will be broadcast on the main UCR Facebook page with Casey Bolden and Jack Bolden, as Noah mentioned. So make sure you tune in for that. So Upperman and White County on YouTube, Pickett County and Clark Range on Facebook, and then we'll let you know about our other two broadcast games coming up tomorrow night because Facebook has been really fun to us these
It'll be
last couple
somewhere.
weeks.
We'll
It'll
figure
be
it out.
Somewhere.
Maybe on mine and Jacob's personal
pages.
It
might be on our personal pages tomorrow night. But yeah, so that one's going to be really fun. Clark Range 15-5 at Pickett County 15-3. Clark Range has to win that game to get the 1 seed. We say have to win. They don't have to win it, but to get the 1 seed and win 7 single A, you have to win that game. Smith County 14-5 at Jackson County 9-5. Smith County looking to bounce back after their loss to Watertown last week 39-37. Jackson County fell to York after having a lead in the second half, and then York just in the fourth quarter ran away with it against Jackson County. Last year, Smith County won both contests 49-38 and 62-37. And this is a big game as well for both of these teams because York is the only undefeated team in the region right now, or in the district right now, whereas Smith County, Jackson County, and Watertown all have one loss, and Watertown won't play a district game until Friday against Jackson County. So you win this game, you can jump up to that number 2 spot in the district.
Yeah, absolutely. And Smith County, you mentioned looking to bounce back. Big opportunity for them. And this is really, Jackson County is so interesting because they have a little bit of the same issue that the boys have. And that's that the schedule just hadn't been good. You look at it, the York game was the best team that they faced. There's a couple of out-of-state teams. I'm sorry, I have no clue. Maybe Cumberland County, Kentucky's good. They lost by 10. Maybe Celebration out of Florida's good. I've called games in Florida. I doubt it. They won by nearly 40 points. Basketball in Florida, with few exceptions, not great. They played Clark Range early, only lost by 5. And then they've lost 2 games to Macon County. Macon County's not bad. Not a state championship team, but they're not bad. And so we just really don't know, right? Smith County's gone out. They tested themselves against Cannon County twice. They played Sparta. They lost to Sparta and Cannon, but then they turned around and beat Cannon. They beat Picket, exactly. I feel like we know more about this Lady Owls team than we know about the Lady Blue Devils. But that means it's a big opportunity, right? On your home floor for Jackson County. I've seen the rumblings. I see it, that they feel like they need more respect from us. Okay, go prove it. Because I was right there. I was like, whoa, we got to check ourselves. They're up on York in Jamestown, third quarter. And then York, I mean, I didn't realize York had that gear right now.
Yeah,
that's a gear that I know they have when a certain someone's in the lineup.
Right.
But to have it without her, very good for York. But a huge opportunity for Jackson County to kind of say, hey, this whole district is pretty tough for the most part, right? These top 4 are tough. And it turns it from us going about, hey, York, Watertown, Smith County, Jackson County to York, group of 3. And it's going to be a little bit of a jumbled mess. So Smith County should be very motivated, and so should Jackson County, as this is their chance to really show kind of what they have, what they're capable of this season.
But a little bit of time off for Smith County as well to regroup after that Watertown loss. Again, that Watertown team is a much better team than they were just a year ago. Got to see them against Cookville just a few weeks ago. That is a pretty good basketball team. So Smith County 14-5 at Jackson County 9-5. One that we're looking forward to coming up tomorrow night, and we'll try to keep you updated with scores from that game. The Battle of Crossville is tomorrow night. Cumberland County at Stone Memorial. CC is 10-8. Stone Memorial 6-12. And a big opportunity for Stone Memorial in this game. They are winless so far in district play, 0-3, and looking for that first win. Cumberland County has had a pretty good start to district play so far. 2-1. They did fall to White County in their last game, 53-39. And you look back at last year's games, they were all very competitive. 45-32, 38-30 victories for the Lady Jets in the regular season. But then Stone got the big one. They beat him in that 7 AAA play-in game, 57-51, and that's kind of what catapulted Stone's postseason success last year.
Absolutely. And listen, Stone Memorial's got to be by far the best 6-12 team in this state. Yeah, it's crazy. And Cumberland County, listen, they lost by 14 to White County. And that was a game that we mentioned last week. Was really interested in, and that's a pretty good account for themselves. There's
Yeah.
going to be a lot of teams that lose by a lot more than 14 points to White County. They already have, and moving forward, so they showed that they can play. This game is massive when it comes to that. And this could be the matchup. You don't want to be in that 4-5 game.
Mm-hmm.
The 4-5 game, and I mentioned that because in this district, the top 2 seeds get a first round bye, and that means they're into the region tournament. And with this district getting into the region tournament, I'll remind you last year what that means. The 4 seed was Upperman, and they were the runners up in the state championship game.
Yeah.
So getting to the region gives you an opportunity to go on a run out of this district. Being in that 4-5, the 3 seed's going to play DeKalb County. Probably not DeKalb County's year. 4-5 game, for example, could be these 2 teams. And if these 2 teams don't want it to be them, you need to win this one, particularly for Stone Memorial. Cumberland County has that win over Livingston in their back pocket with a rematch still to come. Stone at 0-3, maybe they face their toughest 3 games so far that they could face.
Mm-hmm.
They have to find a way to win this basketball game. So as much of a must-win game with that on the line as you're going to find on January 21st tomorrow in Crossville. And it's a very interesting matchup. And I look at Courtney Hedrick and I say, can she continue to find her stride? Because she's the mismatch in the game, right? Sydney Wilhite's a dog. Aaliyah Hawkins is a dog, but neither one of them are post defenders. Can Courtney Hedrick get it rolling in this game? If she can, big advantage to Stone Memorial. But if Stone doesn't have an answer for Sydney Wilhite and Aaliyah Hawkins, they're going to fall to 0-4. And then if you're 0-4, you're in the 4-5 game. And everything's about building to that. And you're going to have Lauren Clark in her first game be an elimination game against another really good basketball team. So there's a lot on the line for these 2 teams. Probably a little more pressure on Stone Memorial. But anytime CC and Stone get together, big rivalry, throw it all out the window. Let's see what happens. It's going to be fun.
And I did misspeak. Smith County is hosting Jackson County coming up tomorrow night. So that one's on me. Appreciate the comments for helping us out with that.
They roasted you. They're going to roast you, man.
That's okay. Cumberland County 10-8 at Stone Memorial 6-12. And again, Cumberland County, they're trying to bounce back. They're just their first loss since December 28th. So they haven't lost in some time. And you were just talking about it for Stone Memorial. They're still trying to find kind of their rhythm offensively with Courtney Hedrick, who's back in there, one of the top players in the area, who is also still just trying to find herself, coming back from the injury and trying to find her way. So those are the games that we have coming up tomorrow night that we're really looking forward to. We will have 2 other broadcast games tomorrow night. Cookville is at Laverne and Livingston Academy is at DeKalb County. Those will be broadcast games tomorrow night as well. Again, not exactly sure on the channels yet, just because Facebook has been very difficult.
Everything gets shared to our main page.
Yes.
So don't worry about where it originates. Everything gets shared right here if you're watching on Facebook to this page. So when in doubt, refresh this page. If it's not there, it's not live. One of us shares it within a minute or 2 of the games going live.
Some games that we're looking forward to on Friday as well. We will not have a show coming up on Wednesday. So tonight is the only night that we'll have the UCR Basketball Show presented by Fire and Vine. So coming up on Friday, some big games. Watertown and Jackson County, York and Smith County play each other. Lebanon and Cookville. That one is one that we're really looking forward to for the Lady Cavaliers, especially with Callie Reeder back in there. And we can spend a little bit of time on this game. Callie Reeder came off the bench in their last game against Wilson Central on Friday, was very efficient, 12 points. And you could see Coach Gillis was kind of just cycling 2-3 subs in and out at a time because she can play. She was playing an 8-player rotation, but she can go as deep as 9 with the freshman Sadie Garrett, who's been playing most of this season. That's a really good 8-player rotation that Coach Gillis has right now for the Lady Cavaliers. When you can bring the tournament MVP from 1A off the bench and give a spark, not only offensively, but now you have a true post defender on the bottom side of that zone. When you do employ the zone, she's a good man-to-man defender herself. This Cookville team just got a lot better, not to mention they got Lily McCarter back, who also brings a good amount of size and can shoot the rock, which we saw on Friday.
Up to the number 4 ranked team in the state in Class 4A, and you see why. And Listen, Lebanon's been really good for a long time.
Mhm.
They were mainstay in the state tournament there for a couple years. Corey Barrett's a really good coach, and Jamie Gillis has owned them. I mean, own them. And I think right now Cookville's now listen, Lebanon just got a really good win over Wayne County.
Mhm.
Blew them, beat the brakes off of Wayne County. And that's 4A versus 1A.
Right.
But we saw
But it's
Cookville play
top 1A
the
against
Rain
4A.
Champs in 1A, and it was a dogfight, and they beat the daylights out of Wayne County, did Lebanon. So this is a Lebanon team playing with a lot of confidence. It's going to come to town. They're going to be fully motivated, but it has not freaking mattered in recent years. I mean, it has been a master class by Jamie Gillis, and we'll see if that continues on Friday. But I like the only thing for Cookville right now is something you alluded to is those rotations, right? And it's easy, like tomorrow, great time to work on them.
Mhm.
They could roll in with 3 girls.
And listen, Laverne is better. They're better than they were last year, but they're still going to win by 20.
20.
Yes.
Way more than 20. But you need to have and so it wouldn't surprise me if we see that rotation go to 8, go a little bit tighter on Friday against Lebanon, if that is a closer game, and you see a lot more of Callie Reeder in a game like on Friday, because she is inarguably, in my opinion, one of the best players in our area. You talk about the MVP of the Class 1A state tournament a year ago. That's a girl that's really tough, right? This is always a good barometer. Is it really tough if something bad happens and you look over and she's sitting there? It's really tough if Lebanon goes on a run and you look over and Callie Reeder's sitting on the bench. It's a little bit easier to swallow if Callie Reeder's on the floor. So I think you see a lot more of her in the next coming weeks as she works her way into this rotation.
That's going to be a massive district matchup coming up for the Lady Cavaliers. That one will be a broadcast game coming up on Friday as well. Upperman is at Cumberland County. That'll be a fun 7 AAA game coming up on Friday. Livingston Academy against Sparta. A really interesting one, especially depending on what happens tomorrow night for Livingston Academy.
Real quick, just on that.
Mm-hmm.
It's important because Livingston dropped the game where they had the huge lead at Upperman. They get that win at home against Stone.
Mm-hmm.
For Sparta, either direction. If they win tomorrow, huge trap game spot. And if they lose, they can't afford to lose another one. Yeah. Right? So either way, going to be very interesting in that game on Friday.
One game on Saturday, Stone Memorial in Picket County. That'll be a broadcast game, and it'll be Casey and Jack on the call of that. You'll see it on Facebook and YouTube.
You're just doing that because you don't want to work on Saturday.
Those are Casey and Jack. Listen,
you're busted.
You take Casey out of Birdstown.
I know. I wouldn't dare. I wouldn't dare.
Bad news.
I wouldn't dare. It's okay. Jacob's earned his Saturday off.
But still, Memorial Picket County again on the girls' side. Be an interesting one for Picket just because they don't have Callie Reeder now, and Stone has some size. And on the boys' side, really good opportunity for Picket County boys to try to bounce back after the early season loss to Stone Memorial and see what they can do on Saturday. Let's talk about the boys' games coming up.
Let's do it.
Smith County, Jackson County. We just talked about it on the girls' side. This game at Smith County, so make sure I put that out there. Smith County 8-11, Jackson County 13-2. Jackson County, the number 2 team in the boys' UC Top 5 this week. Last season, they met 4 times. Jackson County won 63-42. Smith County won 63-48. If I'm not mistaken, is that the one in overtime that they hit some kind of crazy shot in the corner?
I think so.
I think Goose was there for that game.
It was bonkers. Yes.
Yeah. And then Jackson County won the final 2 matchups, 71-37 and 51-47. Jackson County's had Smith County's number these last few years since 2020. They're 9-2 against the Owls. And this is going to be the toughest matchup for Jackson County the remainder of the season, with the exception of a late game against Clay County here in district play. They won't have any other tough games outside of Smith County and Clay County.
I mean, and so a lot to get into here. It's so interesting. You talk about the scores last year. It just shows you how much of a game-to-game sport this is. Jackson County wins by 21. Then Smith County, or working backwards, Smith County wins by 5. Jackson County wins by 34. Jackson County wins by 4. Shots fall, shots don't fall. Good change here, foul trouble here. It's just the sport is so interesting in that respect. It's very different than a lot of others, especially at the high school level. And yeah, it's the toughest matchup for Jackson County, maybe the entire season, which is why I'm not being a hater when I say, and I think Jackson County may wish at the end of this season that they had scheduled harder, because I think they have a chance to do some special things. And I'm really worried about them, quite frankly, when they get into a region tournament or a sub-state round and they get into a game that they have not faced the speed or athleticism that they will see. I promise I'm not being a hater. I mean that because I think this is a Jackson County team that's capable of going on a long run into the state tournament. And I really hope I'm wrong, but I am fearful that they're not going to be prepared for that when they get there. That being said, with that in mind, it's a game that Smith County is capable of winning. And if Jackson County is the kind of team that's going to go on a long run, they got to win this game by a lot. I mean, that's the way I look at it right now, with just a lot of unknowns in this game. Smith County's been very up and down this year. We've seen a ton. A reason I'm bullish on Jackson County's chances to go on that run is because they've been very consistent.
Yeah.
The games they're supposed to win by a lot, they have won by a lot. And that's pretty much all of them. And so they've been super consistent in that respect. This is a game they probably should win on paper, but games aren't played on paper. And so a real test for them in district play, their only real test in district play for the Blue Devils. We'll see if they can rise to the occasion. But if Smith County plays at their best, which we've seen a couple of times, that's a dangerous Owls team that will be hosting Jackson County tomorrow night.
They played pretty well these last few weeks. 3 out of their last 4 are wins. They beat Cannon County in that stretch as well, 59-53, which is a really good win.
Yep.
And then they beat Monterey and Watertown in district play, 68-41 and 58-28. So defensively, they're playing pretty well right now. The defense is going to be tested against that Jackson County offense coming to town. Livingston Academy 11-9 at DeKalb County tomorrow night, who is 8-12. Livingston Academy 2 close losses to Upperman by 1 point and Stone Memorial. And that Stone Memorial game was probably even a little bit closer than the Upperman game when you really go back and watch the game. Stone had to hit a 3 late to go ahead in that ball game. They did beat Cumberland County 62-43, which is the only loss for Cumberland County in district play so far. They are 2-1 in
just like you predicted.
Just like everyone predicted.
Just like we predicted. I mean, that's what we thought was going to happen.
Cumberland County has wins against this DeKalb County team and White County on Friday. I mean, it just not what we were expecting at the start of 7 AAA. And
Trepanian scored 36 points and Cumberland County won the game. I mean, coach said they were going to be run and gun and shoot a bunch of threes, and they are run and gun and shoot a bunch of threes, which means Cumberland County can beat anybody. They get hot. They can beat you. They could get beat by a lot. We've seen both happen to Cumberland County, but hey, 3 games through district play, maybe.
And they're second in the district.
Maybe that's the strategy. Maybe we're going to find out on Friday. I know that. It's going to be interesting.
On the other side for DeKalb County, they're looking to get into the win column in district play. They've had a tough start to this district season after losing to Sparta, Cumberland County, and then Upperman in their last game. And last season, it was all Livingston Academy, 85-42, 82-56, and 71-56. Tucker Miller and Cole Harris, they're still there. They're still really good at basketball. We know Jordan Parker's pretty solid as well, and that's going to be kind of the matchup going into the matchup tomorrow night. Who between those two sides can do a little bit more?
Yeah, it's very interesting. And DeKalb County had a lead in the second half over Sparta, had a huge lead over Cumberland County in the third quarter, gave it up and lost, and made Ty Cobb mad in a game they were down 9 late in the second quarter and didn't go well from that point. So it's a DeKalb County team that's got to feel like they've let a couple get away. They certainly don't feel like a team that should be 0-3, but they are. There's a big desperation mark for them. But the same thing goes for Livingston Academy, who feels like they should have at least won one of those games last week. They erased a big deficit against Upperman. Then they went back and forth a little bit with Stone, were able to keep it real tight until the end. And so this is a Livingston team I mentioned just on the periphery of that top 5. Don't be surprised if now at this point in their schedule, they get a little bit hot. They had this game tomorrow. They have Sparta on Friday. So we have a very interesting one against Sparta on Friday. But this seems like the time where they can catch their rhythm, and they hope that means they can wrap back around and maybe knock off an Upperman or a Stone and give themselves a chance to really get higher in the standings than people expected them to. DeKalb County, they're sneaky experience, man. And calling that game on Friday, it was all players I knew. I called their names before with one exception. They just haven't put it together. And there's who knows, and it could happen at any time. Should be a fun game, though, between the two. And it should be a pretty fast-paced game between these two.
That'll be a broadcast game coming up tomorrow night as well. Again, we won't know the channel yet. We'll let you know about that coming up tomorrow morning. Cookville 9-8 now on the year. They're at Laverne coming up tomorrow, 10-7 on the season. But don't let that record fool you. They've played a very, very good schedule this year. These two teams had some absolute wars last year. Cookville won all 4 of them last year, 79-68, and then they were lower scoring, 44-28, 49-36, and then 62-41 in the region tournament. Cookville, obviously, very different team from a year ago. Laverne, a little bit different, but they still return a few of their key pieces, including their all-state player Landon Bryant. They bring back Cam Samuel, Steve Sherman as well. Their big loss was their post player and Dante White, but even he wasn't playing late in games last season against the Cavaliers just because you couldn't play against the Cavaliers with a true post player, just the way that they played last year. And this game is massive for 7-4A. Both these teams 2-0 right now. Stewart's Creek is the only other team that is 2-0 in 7-4A. So you get a win here, it kind of puts you, like you like to say, in that catbird seat at the top of the district. And all 6 teams in this district are so evenly matched. If you can start 3-0, you give yourself a little bit of breathing room for the rest of the district season.
I'd be stunned if somebody goes undefeated through this district. Really surprised at it. Very different matchup than last year's, as you kind of alluded to in there. Very different, but this is a game that I think we have an opportunity to see the growth of Cookville.
Yep.
They're playing all these close games, but the last time they faced a team with the athleticism of this team, and listen, this isn't a good comparison. Knox Webb is way more athletic than they are.
Yeah.
But similar style, want to run up and down. That style has not played well against Cookville this year, which is ironic because it's the style Cookville played last year. But it has not been the best style against them. So can they handle that? Listen, I don't know even where to start with this district, let alone with this matchup. I just had the feeling every game is going to be like 65-60. And at the very end, there's going to be free throws and buzzer beaters and all sorts of stuff. And I just feel like this game probably is the exact same way. But you're right. 2 very different records when you get beneath the surface. Laverne's schedule has been they very easily can be about 15-3 right now as opposed to 10-7.
Yeah, no, they played Franklin twice. They played Brentwood. They played Independence, who won last year's 4A state title. They played a couple of out-of-state teams. They played a really, really good schedule. And I looked up that Memphis school, by the way. Memphis Home Education.
Okay, sure.
They're 20-4.
I'm sure they have got 5 stars.
Well, sure. they beat Laverne, so they're pretty darn good.
I'm sure they've got Memphis Home Education.
Home Education and Arts, maybe something like that. There's an
and Arts.
I honestly didn't know what the
good for them. Good for them. Wonderful.
That was one of the losses that Laverne.
We were talking about that team last week.
Yeah,
if you weren't watching last week's show,
I
was wrong on the name, but it's a fake school nonetheless. All right, let's go.
But yeah, you mentioned for Cookville, their last 3 games, all 3 of them have come down to the buzzer. Not just free throws. They have come down to the buzzer with a ball in the hands of a team for a chance to win, and they almost lost it on Friday against Wilson Central. A kid let it fly from half court, and he still had about 2 seconds on the clock when he let it fly. He almost made it, so it almost didn't matter. But Cookville able to get a 1-point victory last week, a 3-point victory the week before after knocking down a bucket late and then hitting a free throw. And so the Cavaliers, and then they lost a buzzer beater the week before against Hendersonville. So they would much rather see a less stressful win if they're able to get it on the road at Laverne coming up tomorrow night. And again, that will be a broadcast game. Sparta and Upperman played tomorrow night. We talked about it on the girls' side. The boys' side, maybe not as much intrigue, but when you get down into the matchup, last year, they were all competitive basketball games, 52-42, 47-35, and 56-46. And last year's team for White County, that was similar to Cookville this year, just a completely new team with the exception of Trip Pinion, who was still trying to find his way after having the injury at the start of the season. Now White County, they're coming off the loss to Cumberland County, so they're going to be looking, and obviously they'll play tomorrow night too, but they're going to be looking to get back into it.
Maybe my biggest miss of the year. And I've held out hope for a long time, and you guys tried to talk me out of it on our top 5 for a while. And White County just hasn't put it together yet. On the boys' side, I still have some optimism there because Trip Penny scored 36 points.
Hmm.
They need more scoring threats. They need
Yeah.
more consistent scoring threats there, and they're really going to need more consistent scoring threats tomorrow night against that Upperman team who's playing really well. They've got the pieces. I'm just not sure that it just hasn't clicked into gear yet for Sparta, and maybe they just played their worst 2 games back to back. We've seen that before with Sparta, where they have a real lull in the middle of the year, and then we're in the end of the district tournament. Go, hey, by the way, Sparta's won 10 games in a row. So maybe they can find that gear. The problem is you really don't want to be going into Baxter to find that gear. And so we'll see. But this feels like the make or break week after what happened last week for White County. You get Upperman, and then you host Livingston Academy. You got to find a way to win one. You can't go over, because if you go over, I mean, you're at the bottom.
That's that 4-5 game you're talking about.
They may be in the 6.
They already got the win against DeKalb County.
That's true. They had the win, but you're talking about that game against DeKalb potentially being to not be the 6.
Right.
So, that's totally different than where you want to be. And you're talking about facing a Stone or an Upperman if you're the 6, or pardon me, you're talking about facing a Livingston with your season on the line. You don't want to be in the 4 or 5. You really don't want to be in the 3-6 game. So
has
big,
has
the 6. Big week here for White County, and it's one where you just go by the names, and you would feel differently than based on what you've seen. So we'll see if these are some gamers on this team. See if they can kick it into gear tomorrow. They should be very motivated. Everybody, you go into Baxter, everybody gives them their best chance, their best crack. We'll see if Sparta can do that tomorrow.
That's where they won last time, but it hadn't come for a few years. Back in 2021, December of 2021 was the last time that White County beat Upperman. It was in Baxter, 44-41.
That's crazy to me.
It was wild. They've played a lot since then, obviously.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. I didn't realize that.
Some key games on Friday. Again, on the boys' side, if Cookville's in a district game, it's going to be a key game because they're so evenly matched with the rest of the district. Lebanon is at Cookville. We'll have broadcast coverage of that. And then on Saturday, Stowe Memorial at Picket County. Big opportunity both for Picket County and Stowe Memorial to kind of bolster their resumes, and a good late season matchup in the regular season and non-district play as well.
Upperman at CC.
You
forgot. CC has 3 wins and 2 of them are in the district.
That's right.
I don't know. They're tied for 2nd in District 7 AAA.
I can't leave them out.
You absolutely cannot. I'm way more excited to call that one than I thought I was going to be. I promise you that. I'm very interested.
That game is on Friday as well.
What Coach Goodwin has going on with the Jets is interesting.
All right. I know there's some football. There's some football going on, so
they're going to start for the next 10 minutes, though.
True.
They say 6:30, and it'll kick off at 7:45.
7. But we do want to let you know about all of our sponsors for making everything that we do at UCR possible. Swallows Insurance, the Crouch Team with Highlands Elite Real Estate, Domino's, the Quality Family, Watson Chevy. You're watching the show right here on the Watson Chevy UCR Media Network. Nelson Trophy and Screen Printing, Amonette's Eagle Auction and Realty, Fire and Vine, Tee Up in Baxter, Hall Sports and Outdoors, Livingston Regional Hospital, the Real Estate Collective, Sonia Brown with American Way Real Estate, and Club Wyndham. We appreciate everyone for tuning in today. We appreciate you tuning in to the UCR Basketball Show presented by Fire and Vine. Big games coming up tomorrow night. Go out to the games. If you can't make it, we will have broadcast coverage of 4 of the games tomorrow night. Again, we'll try to put out a schedule tomorrow morning. It may not stick to that schedule. As Noah mentioned, if you go to our Facebook page, everything gets shared to that page, no matter where it is, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's on Noah's personal page, or it might end up being on my personal page.
This is how bad it is. We may have to put it on Twitter, but Twitter's live streaming software is pretty good. We're going to link Twitter to it, or X, and we'll share the link. We're going to get it on. We'll go on Twitch. We'll go on Twitter. We'll go on Facebook. We'll go on YouTube. We will have games, though. I promise you that.
So just go to our Facebook page, pull down the screen, refresh it, and then scroll through and find one of the 4 broadcast games that we have coming up tomorrow night. Upperman, White County, Pickett County, Clark Range, Livingston Academy at DeKalb County, and Cookville is at Laverne. That's Noah McKay. I'm Jacob Vincent. Enjoy some football tonight. Go watch some basketball tomorrow.